That's interesting
This is our
because
one opportunity.
He's obviously after picking up me because I blew you out for a few of these picks in the last couple of months as well. So yeah, he's been watching me and he's like, "What would Sully do in this situation?" Adrian has got a pick there. So no, come on, mate, just try.
Yeah, you know me. I never hold a grudge, do I?
No, ever. Forget, but you don't forget. I love it. Marco here is also on board. Marco, to have you on board, mate. Your insights picks on European football. We just looked at it there this morning. It's 11 winners from the last 12. You are on quite the heater right now, Mark.
Yeah. I said it last week, but got to enjoy the winners when they come because I'm sure at some point soon we'll hit a blank week, and that's the nature of betting. It is a roller coaster ride, and it's not an easy game to be in. So yeah, absolutely enjoying the current run we're on, and we'll happily back those profits, but well aware that this is a tough industry. So yeah, very much kind of on guard for when that sort of variance bites back against me.
Football media. You've had your football media training there, Mark. With that answer there
in the press conference. Yeah. Don't give me anything. Yeah, don't promise anything. What I will say, guys, last Thursday when I think it was maybe a couple of hours after you guys recorded, we got news that Ralf Rangnick had signed with Manchester United as manager, and obviously his work permit has come through today and Thursday, and also we're recording on Thursday, so we can't really cover either United's game at the weekend or Arsenal's game, but I just wanted to kind of get a sense of what your thought process is in with this. And when I say that, in the last couple of months we've slated United, and in all honesty, I'm not going to do that. We were right. We were actually right though. At the start of the season, we knew even when they were doing well that this was a false economy almost. There was going to be a kind of a bottoming out stage. But Mark, with Rangnick, I mean, before people started becoming football hipsters and Bundesliga hipsters, you were always onto the Bundesliga before all these other people. What's your general thoughts on what you've seen at Hoffenheim, Schalke, Stuttgart even before that, and then obviously most recently with RB Leipzig? What's Rangnick going to bring to United?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think sort of strip it right back. I don't necessarily agree with the process United have taken in terms of having a caretaker, then an interim, and then a permanent manager. I don't think that's particularly ideal. But in terms of what Ralf Rangnick will bring, I think he's probably one of the most sensible off-field decisions United have made since Sir Alex Ferguson retired, actually. He's a bit of a kind of a godfather figure in German football, really sort of changed the landscape and was a real sort of pioneer in terms of the style. He's worked minor miracles in some of the jobs he's been at. He's been also involved in a couple of sort of major long-term projects, particularly, people will know about Hoffenheim and their story, but also RB Leipzig. He was very much heavily involved there. Ultimately, I think he'll probably step up and kind of be the sporting director at United if they do choose to go down that route. I think it would be silly to sort of discard him altogether. I think he's absolutely going to be involved in the longer-term picture there at United, but he's absolutely more than capable and adept at being a coach too. And I think I'm excited to see what he will bring to this current squad because there's a huge amount of potential in that Manchester United squad. We saw how Chelsea had kind of untapped potential or underachieving players and how quickly they clicked into the gear under Thomas Tuchel with the right leadership and direction and organisation. So, yeah, I expect United to be fun to follow under Rangnick. His DNA is very much attack-minded, heavy metal style football. There's been some comparisons between Jurgen Klopp and what he brings to Liverpool and what Rangnick could bring to United if he's given the kind of support to do so. So, yeah, I mean, for me, it's a bit of a game changer. I absolutely believe in his ability to sort of turn United around, and hopefully he's given the sort of collateral to sort of build something quite special there. But I absolutely saw, almost overnight kind of believed that, wow, suddenly United are, I wouldn't say they're back, but suddenly they are now sort of top four candidates realistically, whereas before under Solskjaer, you'd be sort of scoffing at the opportunity of them turning it around from it.
Yeah, it's a massive upgrade, in my opinion, obviously, on Solskjaer. This guy's got experience. But Adrian, having chatted to some of our Matchbook Manchester United fan friends who love our content, obviously, they're of the mind, but what has he won? And are you kind of thinking as well that, like, it's all well and good doing this in the Bundesliga or whatever else, but Manchester United, like, in terms of even the world stage, it's a big beast.
I'm not worried about the fact that he's done it in Germany but not elsewhere, because I think he's clearly a very intelligent football man, and the team needs to be coached better habits. They've not really they've got into so many bad habits under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who was more of a man manager than a coach. I think we all accept that. So that he's just what the doctor ordered for the here and now. But working at a club like Manchester United will be something very different for him, because this is a global beast of a club, isn't it? That demands winning football. It's not about long term, really. his job is very short term. He's used to working long term. So be interesting to see what effect he can have in the space of 6 months or so. I suspect he'll have a big impact, given that he's such a good coach. But yeah, moving forward, not everyone can cope with working at a huge colossal club like Manchester United, and we don't know. I suspect he'll be fine. We just don't know. So it's a slight question mark there.
I know it's a bit different in terms of he knew the Leipzig structures and the whole Red Bull dynamic of how they play. But I do remember, and Mark might be correcting me on this, when Hasenhüttl left for Southampton, there was a kind of an interim period before Nagelsmann came over from Hoffenheim that he just take. And I just kind of get the sense that if you're looking for somebody to get this United team drilled, organized, and just have a plan, that this guy is the ultimate for this. And look, I mean, like you said, I think obviously he's going to have the bigger role going forward. And it's the next hire. Is probably going to be the key.
Why, if he does brilliantly, if he does well, which we're all saying he's going to do well, why would United then want to take him away?
That's what I find puzzling about the whole situation, is you're kind of handicapping yourself from the off, because if he is a great success and whoever comes in thereafter isn't, then suddenly, there's only finger pointing at the board again for making stupid decisions. So,
well, maybe this search for whoever they do want, maybe it will slow down if they see instant results.
Quite possible. I think they're probably giving themselves enough wiggle room on that one. All right, great thoughts as ever, guys. Appreciate that. All right, let's move on to this weekend's fixture. 4 Premier League games as ever. 2 bets from the EFL for Adrian and 2 bets from Mark for Europe. First game we want to talk about Chelsea West Ham. So Chelsea head across London to East London to take on the Hammers. 5.0 you can back West Ham. Chelsea at 1.81. The draw available at 3.9. West Ham getting a 3/4 of the goal start on the main Asian handicap line at 1.9, and 2.5 is the total. Mark O'Hare, your guys bet last week Chelsea to win and under 4.5 goals. Like, to be fair, it hasn't lost too many times, but obviously got clipped with that Jadon Sancho goal. But you reckon there's probably a bit of a wash, rinse, and repeat situation here?
Yes, I do quite fancy Chelsea this weekend. Liverpool went off as a shorter price favourite at West Ham at the start of November, and we know what happened to Liverpool at the London Stadium. But I do think they were possibly architects of their own downfall that day, made a couple of poor errors, and were probably bullied a little bit by West Ham, who seized on those opportunities and picked up a welcome win. But I don't think Chelsea will or can be bullied in the same manner as Liverpool were that day. And also, I don't think West Ham have built on that win before the international break. If you look at their performances since then, there was a real no-show against Wolves. The 2-1 defeat against Man City might look reasonable on paper, but the reality was there was a massive gulf between the two teams. West Ham managed 5 shots. 4 of those shots were from outside the penalty area, so they barely laid a glove on City. And then the midweek game against Brighton, which I watched the majority of, wasn't that impressed, to be honest. I thought Brighton had the majority of the possession and the territory and created the better opportunities. I know it took a wonder goal to kind of equalise, but even still, I just think the front players at West Ham, who were buzzing at the start of the season, have been a little bit muted in recent weeks, and suddenly that sort of set-piece threat, which was their key asset, isn't kind of reaping the rewards as often as it possibly was. Regardless of what happened midweek. But I think there's improvement required from West Ham here if they're going to match Chelsea, who normally there is. Playing at home against Chelsea is always a feisty occasion for West Ham fans. I do expect they'll sort of utilise similar tactics as they did against Liverpool. I just think Chelsea are good enough to cover their 1.8 that they are to win the match, but we can boost it up to around 2.1 by adding that under 4.5 goals bracket, which gets so many correct scores on your side. Yeah, we mentioned last week, and Chelsea should have won that match. They only conceded 3 shots. 2 of the shots they conceded were from their own mistakes, basically. So ordinarily, you'd expect Chelsea's pressure to pay against United. I know they didn't create a huge amount of big chances, but they did enough to win the match. And yeah, they were absolutely poor against Watford in midweek, but Thomas Tuchel was critical and identified the fact that they were very poor and should be much better. And I think that kind of performance, despite winning the game, will kind of jolt them back into gear. I think you've got Romelu Lukaku fit and ready to come back into the team now. He's been on the bench a couple of times. A big Champions League game on the horizon. Good opportunity for him to get minutes in the legs. And just look at Chelsea's away performances this season. They've only failed to win once, and that was away at Liverpool when they were down to 10 men at half-time. They've only conceded 1 non-penalty goal away from home, and that was midweek. They've what was it? Oh, you look at the standard of the opposition as well, away from home. 5 of the 7 that they've played have been either mid-table or better. So they have been tested. They've had tough games away, and they've been getting results. So this has played out in 11 of 16 away games under Thomas Tuchel in the Premier League. Actually, under 3.5 goals has played out as well in 11 of 16 away. But I'm just kind of giving West Ham a bit more credit because they are capable from dead ball situations. They do have players in the final third who could hurt Chelsea. But yeah, I just think odds against on this selection is good enough to sort of drop down as a decent bet.
Yeah, I will say, like, just going back to Chelsea's game against United on Sunday, I kind of got the sense that if they had got one of those chances, obviously De Gea pulled off some great saves, that could have been any score. You know, I just kind of got that sense that Bailly and Lindelof at the back just looked a bit dodgy, and I was like, even your guys under 4.5 could have been under pressure, could have gone that way. Adrian Clarke, I know that you're obviously, you know, you don't mind these angles, these Chelsea and under 4.5, but you're going to add a bit of.
I just want to shake it up a little bit, yeah. Look, just to give the viewers, the listeners, just a different option, because it's hard to argue against the numbers that Mark's talking about there, and he speaks a lot of sense as always. All I will say is there's a little doubt in my mind about Chelsea ahead of this game, because they were unimpressive against Watford. And I get the fact that Tuchel will have got into them and they should be an improvement. But it was worrying. It was 50-50 in terms of possession. Unusual, I would say, in an away game at Watford. They were outshot 14-8, which again is unusual. But the bigger problem for me is the control. Chelsea love to control games. And in that midfield, they are light, really light. We saw Saul Niguez given a game for 45 minutes. He wasn't very good, took him off, and in the end they put Trevor Chalobah and pushed him into midfield before he got injured. That's how kind of light of options they were the other night. In central midfield, I think it could be a Loftus-Cheek Mount axis if Kovacic and Conte aren't available. I don't know what the situation is, but if they aren't fit and ready, then I think West Ham can get the better of them in the engine room, which gives them a bit more control of the game. Antonio loves the London derby, absolutely loves them. He's got a tremendous record. I think 10 direct goal involvements in his last 10 London derbies. He's a big game player. And I think that West Ham are quite a big match team. Yeah, you have to respect the fact that they beat Spurs, they beat Leicester, and they beat Liverpool, albeit when they're in slightly better form than they are at the moment. I just think this might be the kind of fixture and atmosphere that gets them going again. So for that reason, because I've got the doubts over Chelsea, again, with Lukaku, if he does come in, he's a bit rusty. So can you bank on him to hit the ground running? Same with Werner. So there are one or two little seeds in my head that make me think West Ham on a handicap might be a different way in on this game. So yeah, West Ham plus 3/4 of a goal, 1.9. You get the draw. Obviously, if they lose by 1, you get something back, don't you? Don't lose as much. So yeah, I think that's my angle. But the Chelsea and under 4.5 is a tough one to argue against, I have to say.
No, it's different views. That's okay. I tell you, Rudiger and Antonio, that'd be a good battle if he picks them up, won't it? Yet to sign a contract, of course, and possibly off to Real Madrid this summer. All right, so no bet for us in that one. Mark makes the case for Chelsea and under 4.5 at 2.08, and Adrian West Ham at plus 3/4 of a goal. You can make up your own mind on that one. We've plenty more bets to come and plenty more agreement as well. So Wolves and Liverpool is the next game we're going to look at here, gentlemen. And Adrian, I'll kick off with you here first, but let's take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com. 8.6, you can back Wolves. Liverpool at 1.45. They mean sensational form, obviously coming off a big win at Goodison in midweek. 5.0, you can back the draw. Wolves getting a 1.25 goal start on the Asian handicap at 1.97. And 2.75 is the main total line, slightly shaded towards the over there at 1.87. Adrian, it's got to be Liverpool, but like in terms of a way in and a bet, because you're like at 1.48, it's hard to get in there. So what way do we attack it?
Well, I've come at it at a slightly different angle. Liverpool and both teams to score no, so Liverpool to win with a clean sheet is the way that I'm looking at this one, and because Wolves don't score many goals. I mean, only Norwich have scored fewer goals than Wolves, of those that have played 14 games. And look at their XG, obviously 2 back-to-back 0-0s, which, tells their own story. But against Burnley, 0.68. Expected goals against Norwich, 0.25. Expected goals. It's 2 of the teams in the relegation zone where they've created very little. Against West Ham, they were the better team. Still, the expected goal was 1, and they got the 1. So they're not flying in terms of the quality chances that they're creating. I know that Traore had his moments the other night. Raul Jimenez is in decent nick, we know, but I don't know how much they can hurt Liverpool in this game. A really rampant Liverpool team who just look mesmeric, don't they? Especially on the road. I mean, frightening, really. The way that they're playing, the stats are crazy. I mean, Jurgen Klopp against Wolves, 100% record. So you can take that into account. Liverpool have already scored. I like this stat. Well, Liverpool have already scored more away goals this season, 25, than Wolves scored in the entirety of their home matches last season, which was 21. So look, we've only had
December, start of December, yeah.
that's away goals against home goals. So we know that Wolves don't score that many. We know that Molineux is quite a low scoring type of stadium, and the games are quite tight. So if you fancy Liverpool to win, which surely most people do, then for me, Liverpool to win with a clean sheet makes more sense. And the price isn't that bad. It's quite good. 2.48 you can get on Liverpool and BTTS now. So for me, I'll certainly be having a little dabble on that one.
Yeah, it's a pretty decent price, just below 6-4 in fact terms. Mark, in agreement on this one, man?
Yeah, I found this one quite tricky to assess from the outset. I did want to oppose goals in some way, and the goal line is at 3, which is reasonably high for a game involving Wolves, but you don't really want to be opposing goals massively when Liverpool are involved, because it's frightening, isn't it? I mean, they've scored twice in every game bar 1 all season. And as you say, we're in December now, and I don't think any team across the planet is generating more goal scoring chances, scoring more goals, having more shots than Liverpool. Everyone's fit and available. The way in which they made mincemeat of Everton midweek was quite scary, really. But Wolves, something about Wolves, which is nagging me, really. If you look at the sort of form tables since those first 3 games, where they deserve much more than just 0 points, they're up there in sort of the top 5, top 6 in terms of almost every metric you look at. And most of that is down to their defensive efforts, because, as Adrian says, going forward, they've not been clicking into gear. Just 12 goals all season. They've only conceded twice or more on 3 occasions. If you look at the sort of conceded or goals against in terms of XG, MPXG, shots, etc., they're up there with the best. I think if you look at shots in the box, they're averaging 7.5 against per game. Liverpool's at 7. So, they're not a million miles away from the best teams in this league in terms of denying opponents goal-scoring opportunities. It's just their ability to put the ball in the back of the net, particularly against the lesser lights. Look at the games recently, which they failed to win or failed to even score or cause many problems in the final third. They're the matches they really should be winning. They're sitting 6th in the table right now. If they win those matches, they could be looking up towards the top 4, and they're not really. So originally I looked at, as I said, under 3 goals. I looked at BTTS no, because it's paid out in 18 of their combined 28 Premier League games this season. But I've kind of gone back to it because I didn't see the price originally, and I've sort of checked in almost 2.5 on Liverpool to win and BTTS no, so Liverpool to win to 0 really does stand out as the best wager in this game. If you consider it landed in all Liverpool's Premier League wins until midweek against Everton, where the goal against came from a silly mistake or sort of a bit of a disruption in the defence as well. So it could have easily been 9 the way in which they dominated Everton midweek. So yeah, I think it's the best route to go down here.
Yeah, 2.48 Liverpool, and both teams to score no. So you can also back it on matchbook.com, Liverpool to win with a clean sheet. 2 different markets there, but the exact same thing. So that won't make any difference there. All right, Jack, good solid look there, 2.48, like that angle. Liverpool's scarily good at the moment. Go from Liverpool in 3rd place to a relegation 6-pointer right now. Mark, this is your game of choice. Newcastle taking on Burnley. You can back Newcastle at matchbook.com at 2.34 currently. Burnley at 3.3. The draw available at 3.45. Burnley getting a quarter of a goal start on the Asian handicap at 1.94. 2.5 is the total. Is kind of a low enough one. I can kind of understand it. But then otherwise, Mark, I mean, if you look at Burnley outside of this midweek fixture, some of these Burnley games have started to become a bit open there, and you're kind of expecting a few goals in St. James's Park as well.
I am, yeah. I'm really looking forward to this. It's Newcastle's 2nd must-win match of the week at St. James's Park, and the first.
Every game is a must-win.
It is, yeah. But I mean, the game against Norwich didn't really go to plan. Game plan out the window after Kieran Clarke's stupid red card, and they're on the back foot thereafter. But I thought they kept Norwich at arm's length reasonably well. Look, it is Norwich, probably one of the worst attacks in the league, but it was a shame really because the atmosphere was raucous. The fans were behind them. Everyone knew the importance of the game, but it kind of killed the match early doors. But I think going into that game against Norwich, I expected goals, and I expect goals here too. And I think both teams to score, which is now 1.8 on the Matchbook site, really does appeal to me. Ignore tactics, but you just look at Eddie Howe's 11, who he's selected in his first 3 games. There's very few defensively minded players there. It's a very much a player or personnel geared to play attacking football. And you look at the way in which his Bournemouth team played for the vast majority of his tenure there. For the vast majority, they were actually pretty good and played above themselves. It was all about sort of getting forward, scoring goals, and collecting wins wherever possible. Yeah, they lost many games and they conceded goals, but they did win games too. So I think he should be taking a similar approach here, considering the tools at his disposal. Newcastle have only failed to score 3 times this season. They've scored multiple goals in 4 home games. The issue is defence, 0 clean sheets. So why would you go defensive against Burnley when you've got the attacking personnel to cause them problems? But yeah, on the flip side, Burnley have been quite fun to follow recently. I think Man City are the only team to beat them since mid-September, which is really quite surprising. They have been better than the league table suggests. Certainly that's what all the data suggests. But yeah, I've liked Burnley going forward recently. Maxwell Cornet, he's been given a prominent role down the middle, and he's pulling up trees. Very talented player. Surprised Burnley managed to sign him, but there we go. And yeah, before the 0-0 midweek against Wolves, they'd scored multiple goals in 3 or 4. They scored away at Stamford Bridge. And if you look at those 4 games, they generated 1.36 XG, which is the 4th highest over that 4-game sample. And only Liverpool's matches produced a higher XG total figure than Burnley in those 4 fixtures. So they haven't been boring at all. They've been quite good fun to follow. I believe they've only failed to score at Man City, Liverpool and Wolves, which is statistically 3 of the better 4 defences in the Premier League this season, and managed just 1 clean sheet this season too. So beat yes, it's copped in 8 of their 13 games. It's copped in 11 of Newcastle's 14. I think both teams will see this as a massive winnable opportunity, play attacking football, look to try and win the game, and therefore I think the 1.8 is a really knocking bet.
Adrian Clarke in agreement, man, I think.
Oh, yeah, all over this one. I think that this is the obvious play. Newcastle have got to go for it. They've got to be really, really positive and look to score goals before they get someone sent off through something silly. And Burnley, it's a little bit a similar case for Burnley, that they're certainly a bit more attack-minded this season. The dynamic has changed with Cornet coming in up front. It gives them a little bit of a different option. And neither team can defend that well. We haven't said that often about Burnley, but Burnley have only had 2 clean sheets this season. That's not like Burnley, is it? That's not like Sean Dyche. So they're not watertight. Newcastle haven't had a clean sheet. Don't look like getting a clean sheet, really. So I would say that this is a game where each side should score if they play to form. I would lean towards Newcastle. I think this is the best opportunity that they'll have, really, to get that first win under their belt. And I was really impressed with their attitude and all-round play, actually, against a strange, timid Norwich performance. They got a golden ticket there with a man advantage, and they didn't show any urgency at all, Norwich. It was a bizarre performance, I thought, from them. Newcastle were good, and if they play that well or a little bit better, I think they might beat Burnley. But that's not the bet here. I think the bet is both teams to score, because neither are great at the back, and each team needs the win.
All right, yeah. Both teams score currently 1.8 at matchbook.com. Adrian, your next game of choice is Aston Villa versus Leicester. There's a possibility that this whole Rodgers and Gerrard narrative may just arise over the next couple of days. I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there. That it may
they
be
used to work together.
Yeah, I think so. I think one used to play for the other. I'm not totally sure how it went down. And yeah, one guy slipped against Chelsea or something. I don't know. I can't remember. Aston Villa, you come back here 2.42. Leicester 3.0. 3.5. You can back the draw. Leicester getting a quarter of goal start in the Asian handicap at 1.79, and 2.5 is the total. But just on Gerrard, Adrian, we have a couple of games of sample size now, but you've been impressed so far?
Very, yeah. I think he's started really, really well. His sort of fighter's mentality is rubbing off on the players. There's a real sort of bristling determination about them. Quite calm as well during periods. He's looking to use those fullbacks. They're flying forward really nicely. They've been quite aggressive in the way they're looking to get after teams. And that was what Villa were doing when they were doing well under under Dean Smith. He sort of got them back to what they were doing when they were successful under the previous manager. And I think what we saw against Manchester City was a snapshot of what he's about as a manager, because in the first half his team were outplayed. City were just on a different level, and it could have got embarrassing, but they sort of held in there. And then he changed it. He really rallied them at half time, and they came out a different team, more belief. Did cause problems for Manchester City, a lot of problems for them. And whatever he said, whatever he did tactically, just to tweak it, it worked. He didn't cave in, and I think that's very promising, because he could identify what needed to be done, and he got his players to do it. So yeah, that's a definite plus, even though they lost the game. So for that reason, I would lean towards Aston Villa for this game. There are two ways I want to look at this. First of all is goals. I think you have to look at goals, because Villa home matches average, I think, 3.14 goals. So yeah, there's plenty of action at Villa Park. Leicester away games, second highest average goal count, 3.75. And both teams to score has landed in all Leicester City away games. So those are angles that you can look at in isolation. I think over 2.5 goals has landed in 6 of 7 for Leicester on the road. So go for goals is probably the message. But then I want to flip it around to the matchup. And the matchup for me is that you've got a Villa team much improved, playing for their new manager against the Leicester side with massive flaws, huge flaws at the back. You can't ignore how bad they are at defending at the moment. And it was set pieces, wasn't it, the other night? Soyuncu. I mean, how bad must Vestergaard be? I mean, he can't get a game. I mean, ahead of Soyuncu. Like, you've got, honestly, I think there are a lot of championship centre halves that will get in ahead of Soyuncu at the moment.
It's not the first time you've had a pop here, either.
I know, but he's been crap. He's been awful this season, hasn't he? I mean, Leicester fans won't disagree with this. I'm amazed he's still in the team. And while he's still in the team, making these mistakes, look at the Leicester goals. When they concede a goal, it's almost always his man. Almost always. So I just think Villa and Watkins, who my advice would be avoid Johnny Evans, go and stand on Soyuncu. I think Watkins is playing well enough to give them a really hard time at the back. Maddison's coming into form, so that's good for Leicester. We know about the threat of Vardy, but I just feel that Leicester have more flaws than Villa at the moment. So yeah, my pick would be Aston Villa to win and over 1.5 goals, which is a sort of unusual bet in terms of what we normally go for in this podcast. But at a price of 3, I like it. I do, because you could obviously just go for Villa on the nose. You could go for just the goals angle on the nose. But if you're convinced by my argument on both sides, Villa and over 1.5 is available at 3 with Matchbook. I just feel this will matter more to Gerrard than Rodgers. He will be desperate to beat Brendan Rodgers. For Brendan, I'm not so sure it matters as much.
Yeah, like the angle of 3.02 to 1 in fractional terms. Marco, I think you're in agreement here on one point of it, the goals. I don't know if you can get there with Villa, but you like both teams to score in this one.
No, I could definitely be persuaded to get with Villa, that's for sure. I'd much rather be with Villa than Leicester. I've been encouraged by the performances against Palace and Brighton, and Adrian's right. The second half against Man City was really quite encouraging and says a lot about what Steven Gerrard has instilled in this team. And yeah, I mean, I've been against Leicester all season pretty much. It feels like it beggars belief how they're sitting in 8th in the Premier League table at the moment. They've only won 5 Premier League games, and I've got them vastly underachieving almost all major metrics. Expected goals against, their second worst in the Premier League. It's a joke, really. And the first half, Brendan Rodgers was very critical of against Southampton on Wednesday, and twice had to come from behind. Stupid goals conceded, just sloppy defensive errors. However, on the flip side, with a Leicester team, they always do have that threat going forward. And Adrian's right, Maddison's playing his way back into form. Vardy's scoring goals. Barnes is back playing. And you look to the bench as well, there are players to come off who can make an impact. So, I could be with Villa. I definitely wouldn't want to be with Leicester. But I think goals, I'm happy to get with goals. BTTS again, just highlighting that defence. I don't want to be too boring with Leicester's stats kind of being repeated week after week, but they've now conceded at least twice in 8 of the last 10 Premier League games. They've kept 2 clean sheets across all competitions this season, the opening day against Wolves and against Millwall in the Cup. But in the Premier League, going back over the last 29 games, it's now just 3 clean sheets, 2 of which are against teams who are relegated. So, yeah, it's very difficult to be kind of positive about Leicester at the moment, just as a whole unit, really, as well as defence. But Villa have scored in all but 2 of their Premier League games this season, scored in all their home games, scored twice or more in 4 of those 7, but just 1 clean sheet in 8, despite Gerrard saying he wants to focus on defence to begin with. And yeah, Adrian's right. All 7 of Leicester's away games BTTS. But more importantly, go back to the end of last season, they're actually now in a record-breaking run in the Premier League. The last 14 away games have seen BTTS land as well. So fully expect Villa to score, and if they do score, suddenly the draw no bet around 1.8 comes into range, really. But I think I'll just kind of sort of just cheer on goals, really, and don't really have to care who wins. It's a reasonable price, around 175.
How do we get here with a bet though? Because it's like, because I can see they're kind of similar, but they're not like the same. So, what do you think? Who's going to see to the other?
Take the 2-1. It's a nice price, and I hate Leicester this season, so I can't vouch for it at all.
Should we not take Villa at 2.43? So at the moment, and just kind of split the difference, Mark, just in case it is a 1-0 win.
Well, the other option
is it work? Yeah.
The other option I was just looking at when Adrian was talking was Villa to score over 1.5 goals, which is 2.26. Again, that's a runner, but whatever you guys fancy.
AC, it's your game of choice, so you make the pick them. After what Daniel did to you last week, I think it is.
I'm just going to go for it. Look, let's just go for it. It's a good price. We don't often tip up something at this price. We've got strong arguments for it. It might not land. Of course, it might not. We're not encouraging anyone to go crazy with it, but I think it's a fun bet. It could be the way to go. Yeah, let's live a little, hey.
Hey, exactly, man. It's almost Christmas, man. Almost Christmas. Let's go for it. All right, let's do for a quick recap of what we have. So before we get to EFL Europe and best bets, so we have Liverpool to win and BTTS no at 2.48. Newcastle, Burnley, both teams have scored there at 1.8. And we just touched on their Villa to win and over 1.5 goals. A nice tasty 2-1 at 3.0 on Matchbook.com. If you do want to get involved in those prices, they are currently available as we're recording on Thursday afternoon. You do not have a Matchbook account, you can get signed up today, any time of the day, 24 hours a day. 15 quid welcome offer is available if you use the bonus code INSIGHTS-RF. So that's Romeo Foxtrot, INSIGHTS or if use that bonus code when signing up. Full terms and conditions can be found at insights.matchbook.com. And while I'm on that, insights.matchbook.com, all of these bets and the later bets in the show will be recapped as well from Thursday evening onwards. You can check that out. If you're cut for time on Saturday, you want to get your bets done, check out insights.matchbook.com. Adrian Clarke, EFL. Coventry are getting a quarter of a goal start at home to West Brom. It's a funny one, West Brom, isn't it? At the very start of the season, we thought, my goodness, this team is absolutely going to just walk this league, at least in the top 2 anyway, maybe Fulham, but they've kind of plateaued of late.
Yeah, but one-trick ponies. That's the old cliche that springs to mind with them. They've got a plan A. It's go boom it long, really long, and play for the corners, free kicks, long throws, etc., and also press and look to win the ball high up the pitch and bully teams in that way. Yeah. And early on in the season, they had great success. And now everyone knows what's coming, and they're struggling. They really are struggling. I looked at this. Across the last 10 matches, West Bromwich Albion are the 18th best team in the Championship. Let that sink in, 18th. So they might be sat in 4th, but that's because they had a blistering start. And what's come in recent weeks is mediocre, really. I hate watching them as well. So they're not fun. As for Coventry, different. I think tactically they're always really smart under Mark Robins.
They're a ballsy team, aren't they? They've come back from a few deficits.
They have. They've got great character. Never ever give in, which is a really good sign, isn't it? They love it at home because they're back, of course, in the city now at the CBS Arena. 7 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss. And which is the joint best home record in the Championship, along with Fulham. And they've got some really good players. You know, Callum O'Hare, Jokeres up front. They're scoring goals, making chances. I just think they can be very competitive in this match. For West Brom, haven't kept a clean sheet against anyone that's currently in the top 10 this season. So, and Coventry are flying high. They're only a point behind them, by the way. Coventry are 1 point behind West Brom. So to see them given a handicap, to see them long out, outsiders for this match is a bit of a surprise to me. So I want to take Coventry on a handicap plus a quarter of a goal, 1.86. I think they're more than capable of drawing the game or winning the game. I'm not impressed by West Brom of late.
Just their big price to win the game, 3.25 or 94. That's a huge price. Your next selection, QPR and Stoke, both teams to score at 1.76. And you look at QPR, they've been scoring plenty, but the back there, the dodge.
Yeah, not great. Yeah, I mean, not terrible. I mean, some of the home games of late, they've actually have kept clean sheets, but not that. I don't know what Mark feels. I'm not that convinced by them defensively. They've scored in every match. So that's one half of both teams to score sorted. If you believe that that's going to continue, just 7 clean sheets in 20. It's not a bad record, but it means that they don't keep a clean sheet more often than not. I think both teams to scores landed in 65% of QPR games. So I really like QPR, by the way. I love Illis, Chair, and Chris Willock and these guys. Those are the two sort of stars, but they're all scoring goals, making goals. So good to watch, but not sold on them at the back. As for Stoke, 7 clean sheets as well, but they're decimated. And they've got issues at the back, primarily, and in midfield. Loads and loads of injuries and suspensions. So I really do fancy QPR to score 1 or 2 at least in the game. But what Stoke have got is some really good forward players. Jacob Brown, Stephen Fletcher, have formed quite a good partnership. Tyrese Campbell is back fit and available now. They had a real off night against Blackburn in midweek, but they're not bad going forward, Stoke, and they're worth a goal. They've scored in 6 of their last 7 on the road, Stoke City. So going to the Kyle Prince Foundation Stadium won't be an issue for them. So yeah, both teams to score. Just it really catches my eye here at 1.76.
All right, yeah, I like the angle. Mark O'Hare, the 130th edition of their Classic card takes place this weekend. I gotta let me rant for 2 seconds about this, right? Because that price is actually drifted, by the way. You quoted 1.8 earlier. There's actually been a bit of money come from Dortmund. I have no idea why, by the way. So I started supporting Dortmund in the mid-90s when they were going well, the Otmar Hitzfeld kind of era that way, right? But this current crop, how they're only a point behind Bayern is one of the most misleading tables ever in December. And yes, Bayern have had their kind of dips, but there's no way that they're only a point less than Bayern right now. Not a hope.
Yeah, well, you've taken my first bullet point off the sheet really there, because
I could have taken more than I left you with the rest.
I'll start with by saying, it's a rare week for Bayern Munich, the fact that they haven't had a midweek game. So they're coming into this game rested. Secondly, the Champions League next week means nothing to Bayern. They've already qualified. They've already won the group. They can try and play and beat Barcelona and knock Barcelona out of the competition. But let's not be silly. All eyes are on Dortmund this weekend because, as you say, that league table is quite misleading. But the raw facts are they are just 1 point ahead of Dortmund at this stage. However, if you look at the underlying metrics, my expected points table is quite drastic, actually. Bayern have got an 11-point advantage over Dortmund in expected points, which is borne out from expected goals, which after 13 rounds of fixtures is enormous, considering they're first and second in that table. But what's quite extraordinary is Bayern are absolutely just hitting par, basically, with their performance data and their XP, whereas it's Dortmund who are overperforming by a huge amount. So Bayern are miles clear of Dortmund in every metric. Expected goals ratio, Bayern are having an 80% supremacy. Dortmund is just 59%. Shots on target, shots in the box, anything you want to look at, Bayern are just well clear of Dortmund. They've won the last 4 away games at either Dortmund or Leipzig. And I know they're a bit shorter, or a fair bit shorter than they were when they went to Leipzig earlier in the season. I still think they're a great bet at the current price. The only concern I have is Joshua Kimmich is missing and available. The midfield does lose a bit without him. Yep. Erling Haaland is fit and available for Dortmund to start. However, Jude Bellingham is a major doubt for Dortmund too. So they will lose a lot without him if he does miss out, and kind of balances out the fact that Kimmich is absent. But ultimately, Dortmund's defence is atrocious. Just 1 Bundesliga clean sheet all season. They've conceded twice or more in 5 of 6 against the top 8. that's enough reason alone. Bayern are going to score at least twice in this game. It's just whether Dortmund can match them. But yeah, I fancy the away win there.
Remember that game last year? We backed Bayern -1.5. Dortmund went up 2-0, and the lads they still covered them on 4-2. Do you remember that game? That was that's basically this rivalry in the last couple of years. That's it after Clarke leaving, and even after Tuchel leaving. I will say one thing though, Adrian, your favorite Leicester City defender. You should check out the two fullbacks that were playing against Sporting last night. Right. Nico Schulz on the left and Thomas Mooney on the right. Because I tell you something, there's a couple of these guys aren't even rated or related to the defenders. Like there's just so bad. And even in the middle, like I mean, like you've got a Kanji and Hummels. Like he was a great player in his day. He's passed it as well. Like and even Zagadou coming in, they're just geez, this is just so bad.
So I also meant to mention as well the rage in the Bayern camp at Lewandowski not winning the Ballon d'Or. There's definitely a point to prove.
They have a point. They do have a point, and even you can make the case yourself. We'll get onto that some other time as well.
Because zero interest in the Ballon d'Or. It's a team game. It's not about individuals.
Get bloody rid of it, because I swear to God, it does nothing but provoke debate every shagging year. All right, Adrian, your best bet. You're dipping back into the Premier League. Southampton, Brighton under 2.5.
Yeah, it's one that wasn't on our slate, and I just felt that it was quite a standout actually. The more I thought about it, the more I thought that this is best bet territory. Looking at the unders, St Mary's is not a ground that's seen a lot of goals this season. It's averaging 1.86, which is the second lowest in the division. Brighton away games average 2, which is the second lowest return in the division as well. Both teams can keep clean sheets. We've seen that. Graham Potter's team are hard to create chances against. And actually, when Hasenhüttl's team are on it, with their pressing and working hard from the front, they're not easy to play against either, are they, really? They don't often get battered. I know the game against Leicester was open, but that isn't always the norm with Southampton. And I think that this will be more of a cagey one. Obviously, Brighton are winless in 9, aren't they now? So it's become quite a big game. Big game for them. If you look at the unders markets, 10 of 14 for Brighton have gone under 2.5. Half of Southampton's matches have gone under 2.5. So, yeah, all things considered, when you mesh it together, bit of a derby as well, even though it's not really a derby. I just feel that it's going to be a 0-0, 1-0, 1-1 max type of match. So, yeah, 1.75 for the unders is it's my best bet of the week.
Yeah, it's a good possibility that price will get back, then we'll get hammered down even further. I would suggest that main goal line will be 2. Mark O'Hare, Italian, Serie A, goals bet. We haven't really done this before, but let's try it. Let's just try it this week. Look, at the end of the day, they're winning. And look, the weird thing is with this new kind of episode of Sarri ball, like 14 games for Lazio, 25 goals scored and 25 conceded. So I mean, why would you not be backing a Lazio over right now?
Yeah, I mean, I normally sort of go through, do my own prices, look to the market, see what they're offering. But there's sometimes some games which you just have to sort of get involved with, regardless of what's there. But I've tried to do a bit of sort of mathematics to try and outline why I think there's value in this price. To start with, Serie A this season, there's been 61% of games have featured over 2.5 goals. If you turn that into sort of implied percentages or implied odds, it would suggest this price should be 1.66. We're being offered here around 1.75, 1.76. So immediately there's a difference there. Then you look at the two teams' styles and shows. Sampdoria, atrocious in midweek at Fiorentina, particularly in the second half, but they do tend to come out and play at the Marassi at home. They've also got the derby next week, next Friday. So there's a huge motivation there to put on a performance, not just to sort of get back after the defeat to Fiorentina, but at home with that match in mind. But they've just been an overs machine so far this season. 12 of the last 13 have gone overs. 8 of those have gone over 3.5. They've only kept 3 clean sheets. At the Marassi, since the start of last season, they've scored in all but 5, but they've only kept 4 clean sheets. And 74% of those matches have gone overs. And as we said, sort of league average is 61%. But the odds on offer are suggesting a lot shorter percentage than that. Then you look at Lazio, you mentioned that. They've been inconsistent under Sarri, particularly away from home, blown away by Napoli last week. Most teams will get blown away by them in Naples, but that's now the 5th game in 7. They've conceded multiple goals away, 5 of those 7 going overs. They've got players in that team who will score goals, though. They will look to play on the front foot, and they will look to attack Sampdoria. I expect them to score. Their matches are featuring the highest goals per game in the league, 3.57, and 57% of those have gone over 3.5 goals as well. Now, if we combine Sampdoria and Lazio's figures, we're talking on Thursday before Lazio play Udinese, but 22 of those 29 games have gone over 2.5 goals. That's better than 75%. Over 3.5 goals has landed in better than 50% of those games as well. So, everywhere you look, there's goals. I'd be really surprised if this game turned out to be a bit of a damp squib. I expect it to be high scoring, entertaining, and over 2.5 goals is the bet.
Yeah, getting over 2.5 in any of these Serie A fixtures at a decent price is nothing to be turning your nose up at. Great stuff, Mark. Great stuff, Adrian. Adrian, a bit like the Bundesliga, you're taking a 2-week winter break now, which is nice. Yeah,
good. Controversial mid-season breather, but look,
it's a pre-winter break. It's even pre-Christmas as well, so I like it.
Exactly. I'm living the dream this month, and I make no apology for it.
Absolutely, mate. Well deserved. We will see you back just before Christmas for a Christmas special. Mark will be back as well next week. We have Jonathan Wilson replacing Adrian for the next couple of weeks, so it should be fun. My thanks to Adrian. Enjoy the break, mate. Mark, we'll see you for Champions League on Monday morning, bright and early as always. Best of luck with your bets this weekend. Don't forget, check out insights.matchbook.com for a full recap of these bets and all of our other podcasts. Until next Thursday, goodbye for now.